In this video, we're going to be taking a look at a real-life project from very beginning to very end of this Patriot band design. And I'm going to show you exactly how we would go about creating it using CorelDRAW and, of course, in conjunction with EasyStone. I have developed a way of designing that makes sense to me that is quite different than probably most of you have seen. And this has been developed over just what works for me over many designs. My first objective when creating any type of design is maximum quality, and secondary to that is the amount of time it takes to actually create a design. And there are several different functions here inside EasyStone that will help facilitate creating a design more quickly if we understand how all these functions work. And that's really the purpose of these project videos, is to give you a real-world hands-on look at creating a rhinestone design from beginning to end. So I think the first thing that we'll tackle is the Patriot band text. It's a pretty common font. So what we're going to do here is just type out the Patriot band. We happen to have a font that I think will work really well for this particular font. So we'll go into our font manager here inside EasyStone, and we'll go over to the Font Finder tab, and I'm going to go over to Rhinestone Fonts and choose our EST Athletic Condensed. Now I'm going to go ahead and, typically we want SS10 stones. So we'll try those first. And probably what we're going to find out, of course I already know, what we're going to find out is that the stones are going to be too big. You see it's 14 inches wide, and that's really too big for this design. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm just going to move over my letter T a little closer to my letter A, and then I'm going to do the same thing with my letter P. It's a little bit far away. So make that more in tune with what I like. And then we're going to select all those stones, and we're just going to change them to SS6 stones instead. Okay, and then what we'll find out, of course, is that the text will be considerably smaller. And you can see now it's only about roughly 10.5 inches wide, which is going to be just about what we're looking for. Now the customer would like this design to be 11 inches overall in width. So we're going to go ahead and move Font Manager out of our way. And we're going to select our bitmap, come over here to the Specialty tab, and set the size right here on this peak, and then right here on this peak, and we're going to set the width to be 11 inches. We'll hit Resize, and now our design is exactly 11 inches wide. So here's our text. We're going to go ahead and set our text to a particular stone color, which in this case we're going to use crystal, and we'll hit Rename and Fill. And that will change all of those stones to crystal stones for us, like so. Then we're going to go ahead and group this together. And now let's take a look at the main design. So what the customer has asked for is the black that we see. If we zoom in real tight, you can see this is actually look like screen printing or something. And the black is the shirt showing through. But the customer wants red, black, then crystal. That's what the customer is asking for. So we can do that, no problem. And so this is how I would go about creating this design. Like I said, I do this perhaps in a little bit more unorthodox way. So we'll choose Light Cyan from our color list here. We're going to set our stone size, which is 3.4. And our spacing between stones is 0.5 of a millimeter. And we'll hit Drop Stone and just click anywhere and hit the Escape key to exit out of the Drop Stone function. So you can see there's one little stone. And then what we're going to go over here to the Stone tab and just hit the up arrow a few times, like so. You can see this is the result that we get. Now I should right click on my bitmap here and lock it down so we can't accidentally move it. So now I have this string of stones right here. I'm going to select that string of stones and do the same thing to the right, just till it fills in, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in 2 stones on either side and go straight up. And we can select more than 1 row at a time if we want to offset quicker. And then we'll go ahead and just grab those and delete them. Alright, so then what we're going to do is we're going to grab a swath of stones here and come over to 1, 2. And then what we're going to do is just kind of eyeball things. We're going to take this stone and just come over almost to that center point. Now you can see the center of this stone doesn't quite line up to the center of our M, but you know what? It's close enough. And then what we're going to do is take these stones and just see what happens if we take these stones and we're just going to go 1 less each row. 1 less each row. See what that angle is like. See there? So that angle is different than the original artwork, but not by a lot. So I think we're just going to leave well enough alone, and that will actually help simplify the design quite considerably. So now I'm going to take this center stone here and offset it down till we get to this peak right here. And then we're going to do the exact same thing. We're just going to go every row. We're just going to add one extra stone and get that same angle basically. Very, very simple to do. And each design, you know, you take a slightly different approach. This particular approach works well for this design, and then the next design it may not work very well at all. So we'll select several stones there and just fill it in. Okay? So that pretty much takes care of the letter M, at least its first initial part of it. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create these 2 offsets. Now you notice I'm only doing half of the letter M. And the reason I'm only doing half of the letter M is because this design is basically symmetrical. Yes, we have a G over here, we have a C over here. So we are going to have to make some changes on each side, but basically it's symmetrical. So why do the whole thing when we can only do half of it? So we have a specialized tool here inside EasyStone called Draw Line. Now this is actually a tool that I use quite a lot, and that's why it's in here. So we just select 2 stones, and what it does is it draws a line in between those 2 stones. So we're going to do that all the way around our letter M. And you're going to see why we're going to do that here momentarily, because it will simplify things for us quite significantly. And this type of design is one that you're probably going to do quite frequently, where you have a more or less an athletic type font where you're going to be doing stone outlines. And when you don't have a bitmap to start with, or excuse me, when you don't have a vector design to start with, this is where these tools really come into play, because we don't have to create a vector piece of artwork before we begin stoning. So we actually save quite a bit of time by not having to do our vector first. So now you can see that didn't take very long at all. And now we have a vector line going all the way around a letter M. So now what we need to do is we need to pick up all those vector lines. So we're going to go into the Selection tab and mark one of those lines. And then we can select the whole design and say pick up everything that matches the outline color of what we marked, which in this case will just be all those individual line segments that we drew. We'll come to the Editing tab and click on Join Paths. And so now we have one continuous shape. So if I wanted to, I could fill this shape, as you can see there. Okay, but that's not actually what we're looking to do. What we want to do is come over here to the Stone Fill tab, and we're going to offset. Now, we're going to do everything in SS10 stones for this particular example, but so the amount of offset that's predetermined for us is the stone size plus the stone spacing gives us the amount of predetermined offset. I'm going to increase this by 0.5 millimeter just because I think it will look better. So we'll go 4.4 millimeters, one step to the outside. And you can see now if I change the color of this, and let me change the width of it a little bit so maybe it's easier to see. Well, maybe we didn't need to get that crazy. Okay, just a little bit thicker. So there's our green outline. And then let's change this value to 3.9. Back to the original default. And again, right click to offset. Let's give this line a different color as well. Something distinct. So now you can see you have two lines. Now what I want to do is I want to just draw a straight line. So I'm just going to anywhere, just click and drag and hold your shift key. That will constrain to a perfectly straight line. And then I want to pick this up, this line up. I want to pick it up and move it over the top of the center of that stone. So you see that line that I just drew? Let's make it pink. Let's give it a thickness so we can see what I'm talking about. So there's that pink line that I just created. So I want to select my pink line. I want to hold my shift key down. I want to select my green one. I'm going to hold my shift key down. I'm going to select this light blue one. And I'm going to come over here to the editing tab and intersect. Now I'm going to delete the pieces I don't need. So let's start with our pink line. Comes in a couple of segments. Everywhere where those lines intersected one another, it's been cut. Okay? So it's been cut. It's been cut. So you see these lines that we offset to the outside? They've been cut right there, dead center, middle. So now I'm going to take the green line. Let's change our stone color to jet. Hold down the Alt key and click on Add Stones. And what does that do? Same thing as detect corners. So you can see it's done a really good job of detecting those corners and adding stones appropriately. And then we're going to switch back over to Crystal. Alt, Add Stones. Now, let's take a look at what we've done so far, just so we get a good idea of what we've done so far. So there's half of our letter M. Let's flip it over. And let's bring it back together. Let's add a weed box. And you can see we have a good look at M. We can select the whole thing. We can delete stone paths. Right? And we have a pretty nice looking letter M there, don't we? And it's very, very precise. And that, to me, is the most important thing. I want a nice, precise design. Now, I don't know if you can see this very well, but if you look at the distance between these two stones, it's slightly more, or excuse me, slightly less than these two stones. And what I was thinking is having a little bit more spacing between the fill of the design and the first outline stone. Let that shirt color show through a little bit more. I just thought that would add a nice little touch. That's why for the first offset I added an extra 0.5 millimeter, and then the second offset we did the standard way. But I think it really turned out nice, that letter M there. So we're going to go ahead and delete that because we don't need that anymore. Just wanted to kind of show you where we're at. All right, so now the next thing we need to do is we need to find out where the midpoint of this letter M is in terms of its height. So I'm just going to select a few stones here and then come over here to the miscellaneous tab. This is a guideline tool that is going to be introduced here shortly to the beta version of EasyStone, but this will be part of EasyStone. Very, very powerful set of tools in and of itself. Some very specialized tools that do not exist in CorelDRAW as far as adding guidelines. But we have a selection of stones, and if we hit center horizontal, it'll find the center horizontal point of whatever I have selected. And you can see that the center is just a pinch off of the original artwork. You'd see that there. So that's really not that significant. We're going to go ahead and close our guideline tool. So what I want to do here is I'm going to take all of these stones, come to the Stone tab, delete Stone Paths, and then I want to come in here and take one of these stones and just plop it right there on that point. Anywhere, doesn't matter. So now this stone is centered on that line. And then what I want to do is I want to come down here and find out which stone is going to give us this angle. And I'm going to say this stone and hold the shift key down and select that stone at the point. Shift, add stones. And you can see it added a string of stones along that way. Then I'm going to grab another stone and put it right on top, and we'll do the exact same thing the other way. Now what we did here is we came in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the 6th stone in. So if we come down 6 stones, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and do shift add stones, then it should give us nice exact angles. Okay? So now what we need to do is we need to fill in everything in between, essentially. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to select this and delete stone paths. And then we're going to select this stone and this stone, shift add stones, create a straight line of stones. And then we're going to do one more, and then we're going to look at something. Okay, now what I see is this is very close. Do you see that? These stones are very close together. If these stones were like this, where they were exactly side by side, you could see just exactly how close those would be. So that is really too close for comfort for me. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to just make a small adjustment. We're going to do the shift add stone thing again. But what we're going to do is we're going to lower the stone count. I'm going to lower it actually to 19 stones. 19 stones. Then we're going to break those two apart. Or we'll just delete stone paths. And then we can do the shift add stone thing. All the way across. And this is probably the most tedious part of the whole thing. And I want to show you something once we get there that may be problematic for us. Let's just see once. So we're going to go all the way across, kind of fill in this whole area. So I'm just selecting the top and bottom stones, shift add stones. All right. So here's the problem. This stone right here, I don't know if we could maybe fit in an extra stone there. Yeah, okay, we were able to fit in an extra stone. So I think this will actually work out pretty good for us. Now we do have this area we need to fill in. All right, so now we have that whole area filled in. Now we just have to make a small adjustment and we should be good to go. So let me show you how we're going to do this. We're just going to select everything and we're going to delete stone paths again. I would probably go ahead and mirror this side over right now. I might just go ahead and mirror the whole design over. So let's just move this over here and flip it. We'll flip that whole design over and bring it back to the center to center. And there we have it now. It's been flipped. So now what I need to do is I need to go ahead and make our letter G over here and our letter C over here. So let's see how we're going to do that. What we're going to do is we're going to select this stone here. We're going to come down and shift select this stone. We're going to come over here to selections and right click, and that will select every stone in between. Then we'll come down here and change our stone color. And you can see our stone color has been changed. Then we're going to do the same thing, go in the other direction. Right click on create selection, rename and fill. Then we're going to do the same thing on the next line in. But actually I want to stop right there, because this is what I was thinking about earlier. You can see that this line, see how this line is not perfectly straight? You can see how it's kind of slightly jiggled, and that is not going to work for us. We need that line nice and straight. So what we're going to do is we're going to back up a little bit and we're going to make it right. Okay, So first of all, this part over here, we're going to delete that because we're going to be modifying it over here on the right, or excuse me, on the left, and then we'll flip it over and do the right-hand side. So we're going to make some changes here. So really easy to do as far as the changes go. We're just going to select kind of a swath of stones here, delete some. We just want to get back to our outline here. So I'm just using the freehand selection tool here in CorelDRAW X6. Freehand select around the stones that we know we don't want. So we don't want these. We're going to make a change. Okay. So we know that this row of stones and this row of stones nice and perfectly straight. So let's select these by right-clicking on Create Selection. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go from center, right-click to center, right-click to center. Right-clicking will make it duplicates. Now, yes, it kind of goes crazy over here, but that's okay. Then we're going to do the same thing going the other direction. So we're going to right-click on Create Selection, and then we're going to come over here from center, right-click. Let's go maybe to right there, and right-click to right there. So now we have this. These are nice and perfectly straight. So now we can go ahead and delete these extra stones that we know we don't need there. We have one here. So now what we can do is now we can do the in-betweens. Shift add stones. Shift add stones. Shift add stones. Shift add stones. This is the best way to get a nice, precise design. Are there quicker ways to accomplish a similar task? Probably, but you don't get the same precision that you would get when you do it this way. So we'll go ahead and select everything. We're going to delete our stone paths. So now we have these stones back to the way we want them here on the right. So what we're going to do is we'll select all these stones here on the left, rather, and then we'll shift select a center stone. Select these on the right, hold our shift key down, select a center stone, and then we can flip it over, and then we'll pick it up from center to center. That's what I call an anchor stone. Now we have to do our recoloring bit. So now if we do it, see the difference? Nice, perfectly straight line, because we took the extra step and made that small little change. So now we get the exact results that we're looking for. All right, so there's the first part of our letter G. And then what we'll do here is we're just going to come in here and we're just going to click. Maybe we'll go one more. We'll rename and fill. Now these stones here have to be kind of line up. So we're going to select this one and hit T for top. And then we'll take this stone here and this one and this one and this one, and maybe even this one. No, not that one. Just the crystal stones. Shift A. We'll space those vertically, and then we can rename and fill those. And then we can take these two stones and come over here to the stone fill tab and just nudge them over like this. Now, yes, obviously there's some that are in the way, so we'll have to delete the ones that are in the way. Shift A, Shift A. These are overlapping, so we'll go ahead and dispose of those. And this stone here, what we'll do is we'll go B for bottom, and then we'll see if we can select these. Shift A. See, those are too tight, really, so we'll delete that. And we'll right-click on Create Selection again, Shift A. And there is our letter G there. And I think that actually looks pretty darn good. So I'm pretty happy with that. So now what we need to do is we need to create our letter C over on this side. So what we're going to do is go ahead and select the stones, right click on Create Selection, rename and fill, select the stones, right click on Create Selection, rename and fill, select the stones. I'm going to go down, I don't really know. Let's just go down to here. We're just kind of grabbing at straws because I really don't know. So we will right click on Create Selection, rename and fill. Same thing, right click on Create Selection, rename and fill. Come back at it the other direction. Right click, Create Selection, rename and fill, and one more time. Right click, Create Selection, rename and fill. And there is our letter C. Now there are some lines. This line here is not a path, a stone path, so we can delete that. We can delete that. We should come in here and take a look at any overlapping stones with check spacing. And there's going to be a bunch of them. There's 1,416 stones in this design, 95 of which were sitting on top of one another. So now we've gotten rid of all of those. We can pick up our Patriot band text, and let's go ahead and group this together and group this together, which it already was. And then if we select them both and hit the letter C, that will center them side to side. And then once we have it the way we want it, we can go ahead and add a weed box. And I'm just going to change our weed box color so we can see this a little bit better. And now we can kind of compare. We'll unlock our bitmap here. And we can kind of compare pretty close. Now you notice here on our letter C, we did a slightly different setup. And that's really, entirely up to you and your customer if that's acceptable. I think it will be. I think I will ungroup this though. And I think I might try changing a couple of stones back to crystal and see if that doesn't look a little bit. Yeah, I think that actually looks a little bit better, a little bit more appealing to me. So there is our finished design. Maybe, yeah, no, pretty much have to leave it just like that. I think that's pretty acceptable though. So I'm happy with that. It's really good similarity to the original design. And you can see it really didn't take that long. And the design is absolutely precise. It looks really, really nice. There's really nothing that we need to change. If we really analyze this design a little bit, there are maybe two spots that could be concerning. See these two stones here? They are touching, and then here as well. But I know enough about cutting templates. I've done it enough times. That's not a huge deal. There's one, when you have just one minor area like that where the two stones are touching, it's really not a concern. If you're doing a big area in the template where all the stones were touching that close, then it would be a concern. But just those two little areas there, not something to worry about. Your stones are going to brush in just fine. Your template's going to come out just perfect, and you'll have a really nice design there. So that should give you a really good understanding of how we can utilize some of these various tools. We use that intersection tool, and we use the island fill tool, and all the other different tools with the add stones and the shift add stones and delete stone paths, all the various functions that we used along the way to create a really sharp looking design for our customer. So I hope that gives you a little insight as to how we go about creating logos where we don't use vector. Hardly ever we don't start with a vector design. We almost always start with a bitmap and just start stoning. So it's a little different method than perhaps you'd see demonstrated elsewhere. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and thanks for watching.